Good afternoon, I'm Edward Probert and this is the reflection from Salisbury Cathedral on Tuesday the 18th of August. Welcome to my study. Earlier this afternoon I was sitting in exactly this chair recording a radio interview on the mobile phone to which I'm now speaking here, whilst talking to the interviewer on my landline phone, which is over on the shelf over there at the moment. And in the midst of that conversation, which was already on two devices, on that same device, this phone, I received a phone call from a friend of mine. Well, this is all rather confusing, but it's stuff of life these days, really, isn't it? We receive any amount of communication all the time. Just in front of me, I have this phone, a laptop here, an iPad there, and the landline phone, as I pointed out earlier. Four means of easy communication. And in the course of today, I've dealt with many emails, many of which have been to me, but only as an incidental of being copied into emails going around a group of people. Besides all of that, I use things like WhatsApp, and I use various other means of communication. But I don't do a whole lot of things that many people do: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and a great many other things by which people customarily communicate these days. Now, frankly, these things have been a real boon. They've been quite a godsend in this, especially in this crisis of isolation that so many people have suffered in the last 6 months or so. So I don't want to undervalue the actual grace that came through this ease of communication. And it is a tremendous contrast with how things used to be not really all that many decades ago. Well into my adult life, it was a strange thing, frankly, to use the telephone much. Quite a lot of people didn't have a phone into their homes. When I was at university, for example, or working after university, I didn't have a phone of my own in the house, and if I needed to call home, for example, I used to go to the phone box, and in our university college, as I recall, there were 3 phone boxes and 400 or 500 students. So it was a pretty rare thing to communicate by that means to our homes or to anyone else. We also used other means. We used postcards and letters, and even such things, such exotica as telegrams. Well, in spite of it being rarer 40 odd years ago, that was still a luxury plethora of means of communicating compared with our ancestors only a couple of hundred years ago. Because until the era of the penny post in this country, of the railways and the telegraph lines, getting a message to anyone beyond your own village or town would be a major undertaking, uncertain, probably very expensive, and in any case, most people couldn't read or write when that message got to them. So this ease of communication, which we take very much for granted in our current era, is a remarkable thing in the great sweep of our time. Now, another thing which is really commonplace these days, as well as all that spoken and written communication, is the photograph and the video. Well, here's an example. I'm talking to you now, live, on this piece of film. And I have received today a number of photographs that people have sent to me for one reason or another, and I have and do occasionally send photographs of such trivia as vegetables on my allotment, or the pond on my allotment, flowers in our garden. I haven't yet got to the stage of sending photographs of my breakfast, which I've certainly seen plenty of people do. I'm not sure I'd be that grateful to receive those pictures, but it's incredibly common to send photographs these days. These things, again, were terribly hard won. Photography only 170 years old or so, and the means of sending them is only a few decades old. You see behind me on the mantelpiece there a number of bits and pieces, just stuff. I've talked about stuff in this study before. I'm going to get a couple of things which are over there. This here is a series of photographs which have been in this frame since our children were infants. There are 5 photographs here. 2 were taken when our first child was born, and indeed one of them in the hospital as my wife and I are looking a bit worried holding this child. And the others are taken when our second child was a small baby. So those photographs got fixed in time 28 years ago, when those people, now aged 30 and 28, were very small. Now, as soon as I look at those pictures, they evoke very immediate memories. I remember the occasions, I remember what our children at that stage in their development looked like, and to some extent also what my wife and I looked like, which is not entirely as we currently look. A photograph is fixed in time. It evokes something quite powerful, which is why no doubt we keep these images even when they fade into the background of all the other things that we have surrounding us. In those pictures, our children, as I said, now grown long past that stage in their lives, are fixed forever at the ages of 0 and 2. Well, there's something else on the mantelpiece that I picked up when I was over there just now. It's this. Well, this too evokes, for me, memories of just a few years earlier, probably 4 or 5 years earlier than those photographs over there. This is a fossil which, digging in that allotment, I hit this with my spade, and you can see a chip there which my spade caused to this piece of stone. Well, it's pretty obvious even to the most casual observer that that is the fossil of a bivalve of some kind. I don't even know what it's called, but it is quite a large creature which lived a strange life at the bottom of some sea in what is now Oxfordshire millions and millions of years ago. I don't pretend to the inner knowledge of geology, so I can't say much more than that. But these things surround us all over the place. This means a lot to me because it evokes the time that we lived there, our early married life. It evokes memories of gardening there and a lifetime of gardening, which I've done subsequently. But it does more profound things as well, because it reminds me of this creature, or what's left of it here, which has been fixed in time for time beyond human understanding, frankly. Millions and millions of years, and geological processes which have brought this thing from the bottom of an ocean up to the top of a hill where we lived. It's an echo, a memory, an evocation of a former life. Well, if photographs fix our children some 28 years ago. What on earth does it mean to be fixed hundreds of millions of years ago? We're surrounded by things which can talk to us in, frankly, rather mysterious and awesome ways. Every time I'm in the cathedral and I'm sitting near one of the pillars, especially the pillars of Purbeck stone, where it's very easy to see tiny little fossils, nothing like this big, but just little things about 0.5 centimetre across, all through the columns of stone. All those probably millions of creatures now preserved in the cathedral stones, having been reworked into structural stones. Those creatures lived under God in the way that he formed them, as did this here from somewhere else now in England. These things have been fixed. But these too speak to us through time, not just in the transient ways that we've latterly invented, but the things of God, things of his creation, can speak to us from enormously different times too. I just want to quote to you a few verses from Psalm 103. As a father has compassion on his children, so is the Lord merciful towards those who fear him. For he knows of what we're made. He remembers that we are but dust. Our days are but as grass. We flourish as a flower of the field. For as soon as the wind goes over it, it is gone, and its place shall know it no more. But the merciful goodness of the Lord is from of old, and endures forever on those who fear him, and his righteousness on children's children. Yes, we are transient, like the flower of a field, the wind blowing it away. And yet we have a place in the love of God as part of his created order. One final little quotation. This is from the very end, or the third last verse of Samuel Coleridge's very long poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. You may recognise this verse again from an echo. It was rather thieved by Mrs. Alexander in one of her hymns. He prayeth best, who loveth best, all things, both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.